Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you being here this morning, a Wednesday morning. It was gorgeous outside yesterday, like near 60. It's like this fake spring. I'm sure we're going to probably get more snow in March, April. It always turns out this way. You're like, oh, spring is here. And then like we get a big snowfall towards the end of March. But we'll have to see. Maybe spring is here to stay. Christopher Simmons was determined to be the shooter in the weekend triple homicide and suicide. So he killed his girlfriend's biological son, who was 13 years old, attended District 87. Community's reeling from this. He killed the girlfriend's friend as well. And, it shouldn't shock you. He's got a long criminal record. We talked about his FOID revocation. So in 2021, he legally, the gun that he used, he felt like he was on top of the gun, and the gun was bought in 2021 legally. He had the FOID card, but his FOID was revoked, probably because of his multiple DUIs. He had a misdemeanor gun charge. When you're charged with things, that also sparks a FOID card revocation. Some other things that would spark your FOID being revoked: going to a mental institution, a hospital, checking yourself in to be institutionalized. Well, we don't have mental institutions anymore. You've got Jimmy Carter to thank for that. We talked about how we need to open those back up. Clearly, I think this individual was insane. I mean, absolutely maniac to do something like this, and that's the only way you can really explain something like this. You've just got to be so mentally unstable to take the life of a 13-year-old. I just can't even wrap my brain around it. It's so tragic. But I don't want to say it was preventable. I mean, if we had mental institutions and processes and our bureaucratic processes worked, perhaps this could have been stopped. So I'm going to be talking about this. The Illinois State Police did confirm with me that they did not confiscate and they didn't conduct a seizure. They did also confirm with me that Christopher Simmons did not, and he failed to turn in what's called a firearm disposition record, something that you have to submit after your FOID has been revoked. So I'm going to go through that process. I'm going to explain it. What happens when you don't turn in that record, when you don't turn in this essentially form after your FOID's been revoked? Well, what should happen anyway? So we're going to get to that, but I do also want to get to a couple of other local things this morning. Alderman Danenberger, he wanted staff and the city council to have an opportunity to attend the candlelight vigil. Now, I know I'm going to sound completely heartless, but when it should not surprise you, the Bloomington City Police, they even admitted they were slow to the information, that they wanted to be respectful of the victims, and I get that, and they wanted to make sure that they had everything right before they released a press release. But when there's vigils, when the information is slow getting out, this is why I did not talk about it right on Monday morning, because I was like, something's going on here. They're calling for visuals. They're broadcasting the visual on publicly funded radio. Okay, so not that I don't think that there should be a visual, not that we shouldn't mourn as a community. This is very, very tragic. I'm praying for those who are grieving the loss of these three individuals, and Christopher Simmons as well, suicide. I mean, a total monster. I'm not sympathizing here with the guy who took three innocent lives, including a kid. I'm not sympathizing with him, but I'm grieving with everybody. And not that I don't think that a visual shouldn't have happened, okay, but it should, as a listener, and as somebody who consumes media and watches the government, and that's my job, is to watch the government for you. And I knew something was up right away. And it's clear that, I don't want to say it was avoidable, but it's clear that there were processes set up by your state government, by your local government, that weren't followed. It's clear that this guy had a long history of DUI violations. He was a danger to society. He pled guilty to a misdemeanor gun charge. He was, I think, on probation. I don't know why the guy still had his gun. Okay. They tell you until the cows come home, the gun control, gun control, gun control. But the process is set up to control guns that don't even work. Okay, so I'm not even I'm not a supporter of gun control in any kind of way. The FOID card is unconstitutional. I think that mental institutions should come back. Thank you, Jimmy Carter, in the 1960s for shutting those down. So my point is here, they made a motion to kind of put things off. These were capital projects. Among the capital projects Bloomington was supposed to discuss is the water situation, the water quality. Now, I know a lot of you have been texting me, hey, Kat, what's up with the water? What's up with the water? They switched lakes. They've done this in the past, and the city has kind of ignored it in the past, and people have kind of gotten used to the taste, but apparently the taste of the water is really, really bad. I'll be honest with you, I haven't tasted the water, don't live in Bloomington, okay? But Alderman Sheila Montney, okay, she objected to this. She, sympathized with the vigil and everything, and she said, yeah, I sympathize with this, but we have to talk about the water quality. To wait 3 weeks to talk about the water quality and what we're going to do about this, that's a disservice really to the constituents. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that's what she essentially said in the meeting. Danenberger and Cody Hendricks, they made a motion to not talk about the water, so that way staff members could attend to this candlelight vigil, and they could all attend the candlelight vigil, the members of the community, which I understand, but it's interesting that they had this candlelight vigil. It's a distraction. Okay. Not that, mourning is a distraction, but when you look at the story, when you look at Christopher Simmons and who he was and his violations and how the processes were not followed to ensure that he didn't have possession of this firearm, then there's a lot of questions that start to arise in people. And I'm not saying, I don't know who set up the vigil. I have no idea. But the people, they're never let a good crisis, I guess, go to waste. They, put all of your attention on the vigil and your mourning, and they played on your emotions. And that prohibits you from asking the questions that need to be asked about this story. So I found out some answers. I'm going to share those with you. I do also want to talk about the Democrat governor this morning. Another headline, he's calling RFK Jr.'s health views dangerous. I think that's pretty hilarious coming from a guy that I think is one cupcake, one sweet treat away from a triple bypass. Okay, he's, objectively morbidly obese, and he's sitting there calling RFK Jr.'s health views dangerous. Okay, so let's get into it. First, I want to talk about Simmons, his long history of traffic violations, DUIs from BLN News. They say that he was under the influence of cannabis in some of those situations as well. He pled guilty to a misdemeanor gun charge. BLN News says he was on probation. It appears he was on probation until next month. So this guy was known to authorities. Okay, he was known to authorities. He had his FOID card revoked. We know that, meaning he can't legally own a gun. And the gun that they found at the scene, purchased in 2021, shortly after that, sometime he had his FOID revoked, probably because of his misdemeanor gun charge, I'd imagine. Things like that, charges can spark FOID revocation, or, mental health issues. If you go and you check yourself into a hospital, that can spark a FOID revocation. So, again, these FOID cards, I don't agree with them. They're unconstitutional. They're pretty much meaningless because criminals, they're going to get access to the gun. They're going to legally possess the gun, and your law enforcement agencies, the bureaucracy, I should say, they're not really, they prioritize it, but not in every case. Okay, so when they say gun control, they're not actually following the gun control laws that are on the books right now every single time. There's not a clear, they don't follow the processes a lot of the time. Okay, so state police and local law enforcement, I would say that the process is set up when somebody gets their FOID revoked to ensure that they don't have possession of firearms. The processes that are currently set up, they rarely work. Okay, the Illinois State Police did confirm that they did not confiscate or conduct a seizure. They didn't. The Illinois State Police, for his guns, for Simmons' guns, after he failed to turn in a firearm disposition record. So notification of Simmons' FOID was sent and included in the law enforcement portal, okay, which local law enforcement agencies can use for enforcement purposes. So this is straight up from the ISP. They told me notification of Simmons' FOID revocation was sent and included in the local law enforcement portal, which local law enforcement has access to, and then they can use the information in the portal to conduct perhaps maybe a seizure or a confiscation of his guns. Okay, don't know if that happened. Obviously, probably not, because he had the gun. I would imagine they didn't get the gun that he legally obtained in 2021 with his FOID card after his FOID revocation. So here's how it kind of works, just so that way you know. So there's notice of revocation. Okay, so Simmons, at one point, the ISP notified this individual that his FOID had been revoked, and they provide instructions on how to surrender your firearm. Okay, or how to transfer your firearm. The person, after they get the notice of revocation, they have a 72-hour surrender requirement. So you have to, via the law, surrender your firearms either through a transfer. So you have to transfer it to somebody, which I don't know if that happened with Simmons. Clearly, he didn't transfer it, and like it wasn't with that person, okay, whom he transferred it to. So he either has to surrender them to law enforcement within the 48 to 72 hours, or he has to transfer those firearms to somebody with a legal FOID or with a FOID card. Okay. Now, failure to comply with this 72-hour requirement. If the individual does not comply, law enforcement, including ISP, may seek a warrant or a court order to seize those firearms. Okay, that's how it works here in the state of Illinois. And with that, after you transfer your firearms or surrender them to the law enforcement, what you have to do is file a form. Okay, you have to file a firearm disposition form. It's a record. He did not. They confirmed that he did not turn in this form. The ISP confirmed that they did not receive a firearm disposition record from Simmons. So after that, there's a little thing called firearm restraining orders. In certain cases, such as if the revocation is due to mental health concerns, or if he's a risk violence, if he's a risk to the community, if he has a violent record, which he didn't really have. I didn't see anything like super. I mean, it's concerning. DUI violations upon DUI violations, and then he also had this misdemeanor gun charge. You could probably say the misdemeanor gun charge was violent, which could have triggered a firearm restraining order. He did not have one, from what I understand. So authorities can pursue an emergency firearm restraining order to immediately remove the weapons. ISP did not inform me if they had issued a firearm restraining order. I'm assuming not, because they told me that they were not aware of any kind of confiscation that had happened or any kind of seizure that has happened with this individual, at least on their part. They go, as far as local law enforcement, we don't know. So the question remains, don't know why the gun was in his possession. There are processes set up. He didn't, as soon as you don't turn in that form, if you fail to comply, okay, if an individual does not comply with that form, law enforcement, even the ISP, they can seek a warrant and get a court order to seize the firearms. Okay, that's what triggers a court order if you fail to comply with this form. So, yeah, they didn't receive this firearm disposition record, and they didn't go and conduct a seizure, and they claim that because they didn't receive the ISP, because they didn't receive the form that he's supposed to turn in, Simmons, that's why they didn't conduct the seizure. But usually when you don't comply with the law, the firearm disposition record, and reveal where your firearm went, whether that was through a transfer or surrender to the local law enforcement, if you don't reveal that to the ISP, usually that triggers a seizure of some kind or a court order of some kind to take the weapons away. None of this happened. Okay, that's my whole point. Clearly he had the weapon, and I know I might sound heartless or whatever, but when they try to distract you with your emotions, and they play on your emotions, and they try to get you to not look at the failed processes, that's concerning, and they try to distract you with the emotion of this, because it is emotional. It is terrifying, that this happened. But there are several things here that went wrong. Okay, misdemeanor gun charge. Why was he still in possession of a gun that he obtained legally in 2021 when we have all of these processes in place in Illinois? I just don't get it. It just goes to show you that none of this really works. When they say they scream gun control, they really don't care because the processes tend not to work. Especially, I mean, not in all cases, I won't say that. The ISB does conduct confiscations. They make a ton of money, right, with the gun confiscations. But I would say rarely do these processes work. The bureaucratic gun control process failed here, and we should not be shocked by that. All right, I want to switch gears. I got to get to the Bloomington City Council meeting. We're going to get to the water. Gary Lambert provided public comment at the city council meeting. I think it was a couple of days ago. He talked about the water quality. You guys have been texting me, 309-451-9299. You can always talk to me. Let me know what your water tastes like. I'm kind of curious. Bloomington, you live in Bloomington, let me know what your water tastes like. Apparently, they switched, I think it was over to Lake Evergreen. I don't really understand the whole process. I don't think Democrats, they scream at the sky about clean water. They don't really care about your water quality, the basic infrastructure, public safety. Democrats really don't care about that. They like their, fun projects. Now Gary Lambert in his public comment talked about this being $80 million. The last number I saw was $60 million for the Bloomington downtown streetscape. That is all fun. Okay. And it comes down to ideology. It comes down to your philosophy. Leftists, they hold this ideology and this philosophy that you can just spend money, fun money, and you don't have to worry about the necessities. Okay, first, you have to take care of what is necessary first before you spend all of this money. So I don't know if Gary's right about that $80 million number, but that's insane, okay, for the Bloomington downtown streetscape. That's not crucial infrastructure. That is not your basic infrastructure. They're wanting to play with your money for sidewalks, okay, to make the downtown Bloomington area more walkable. Okay, and do benches and cobblestone sidewalks. That stuff is ridiculous when you compare it to the water quality. And if you have water that tastes like septic, which is what Gary had said at the public comment section of the Bloomington City Council meeting. I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. It's gross, says Melissa Downey. I'm sorry. I couldn't imagine that. I've actually got some water here. I live in Lincoln. It's pretty great. It tastes delicious. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, it's not like the best water I've ever tasted, but definitely not septic water or anything like that. I'm going to take a drink. I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's good. And I feel so bad because it's like, that is just basic infrastructure. Water, having water that tastes good, having water that smells okay. I mean, you have to shower in this stuff. You have to shower your kids in this stuff. If it doesn't smell good, if it doesn't taste good, that is a big Ronald Reagan. People say that. That is a leftist thing. They always say that Ronald Reagan. Now, he might have closed the mental institutions mid-'80s, but Jimmy Carter, if you look at, he started that ball rolling in Ronald Reagan. Like I said, Ronald Reagan was a good president in many ways, but there's many things Ronald Reagan did. That was probably one of them. He might have had a hand in closing some of these mental institutions in the mid-'80s, but it really started, I think it was the 60s, Jimmy Carter. There was just a push, and I wouldn't say that Ronald Reagan is the best president. I know. You're probably like, what? You're a conservative. I've got a lot of gripe with Ronald Reagan. We are actually in this chronic health disease issue, probably because of a lot of what Reagan did with the corn subsidies. So if you look on your pantry, just go into your pantry, pull a couple of things off the shelf, look on the back, the ingredients list, you're going to see, it's a leftist talking point. I can pull up Jimmy Carter and the mental institutions. There was an act in 1960 where he started the closure of the mental institutions. Okay. Okay, Mental Health Systems Act. Kerr created, okay. the Mental Health Systems Act of 1980. Okay, so this is what sparked it all. Okay, now Reagan just kind of this was the problem. Okay, so the Mental Health Systems Act. Check that out. Read through that. That was all Jimmy Carter. Okay, I'm not saying that Reagan didn't keep it going, right? And it wasn't the one who and didn't, but Jimmy was the one who really sparked this. So yeah, you guys can go read that. I'll throw it here. The Mental Health Systems Act. Okay. This was all about the Carter trying to focus on reducing the stigma associated with mental illness. Okay, this was where it all began, this act. So go read that act, okay? Yeah, point is, I really don't give a damn at this point. Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, whoever it was, I really don't care who. I mean, we could fight about that all day long. I mean, the question would be, Dan, do you really care about opening these things back up? I don't care who done it, right? It was Jimmy Carter to begin with, but I don't really care who done it at this point. What we need to do is reopen them, okay? And the people who are against that vehemently are the people on the left, okay, and Democrats. They are vehemently against that, probably because of the Mental Health Systems Act, and they're beholden to the Jimmy Carter era of this act. He signed the Mental Health System Act in 1980. And what he tried to do was provide, and we'll see them now, like mental health centers. Now, these are not places where you can institutionalize people, mental health centers by force. Okay, mental health centers are kind of like, and he funded a lot of these mental health centers, which ultimately they didn't do very well because, they rely on government funding, and people aren't willing, mentally ill people are not willing to go get themselves help because they're in a mentally ill state. Okay, so to expect mentally ill people to go get help for themselves is just a silly notion. Okay, maybe you get a few people who recognize that their mental health is in jeopardy and they go and they check themselves in. But 9 times out of 10, I'm willing to bet that people who are severely mentally ill are not going to go check themselves in mental institutions. And it's no different. That's what I want to, highlight here. It's no different from imprisoning people. When we shut all those mental institutions down, they would just wound up going into the prison system, which is not a place for them because they can't get the continuous care. They're released, and they still are experiencing these mental health issues. So we need to open up the mental institutions. Yep, we're going to talk about the water. Good morning, Carol. Thanks for listening. Our water has a smell, a chemical polymer. I've never heard of that before. Polymer? Huh. Interesting. Plasticky? Ooh. That's what that is. It's like a plastic compound, chemical compound, taste unpleasant and not thirst quenching. Ugh, yuck. I'm so sorry. We're going to talk about the water. Gary Lambert, he actually had public comments, so we're going to get to that here in just a second. Here we go. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news in Talk Bloomington Normal. I do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. Somebody said, good morning, Cat. Our water has a smell, like a plastic smell. It tastes unpleasant, and it is not thirst quenching. Yeah, you take the drink of water and immediately you want to spit it out. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the Bloomington City Council meeting. Earlier in the show, we were talking about, and people will say that Reagan was the one behind the closing of the mental health institutions. To be honest with you, I don't know who had a hand in what. I don't think Reagan stopped it, but really, Jimmy Carter, and what I'm just telling you what I know. The Mental Health Systems Act of 1980. This was there was a focus here of reducing stigma with mental illness, which I don't understand what was so polarizing or what was so wrong about wanting to institutionalize severely mentally ill people. Okay, they're closing up our mental institutions, and I said that, hey, if we had those open, most likely, I would say Christopher Simmons would be a perfect candidate for that. He's clearly suffered addiction, cannabis, DUI violations, had a long history of traffic and DUI violations. He also had a misdemeanor gun charge. We talked about the possession of the firearm and how he was still in possession of it despite the FOID revocation. There's a process that the ISP and local law enforcement have to follow if he doesn't turn in a firearm disposition record, okay? And he didn't turn in this firearm disposition record. So process has failed. Okay, at the end of the day, bureaucratic gun control process has failed. That shouldn't shock you. The gun control processes, the gun control laws, they don't do much, okay? The FOID card is a stupid little piece of plastic, okay? It doesn't really mean much to criminals who want to hurt people and mentally ill people who want to hurt themselves. And we're talking, of course, about Christopher Simmons, who was determined to be the shooter in that weekend triple homicide and suicide. Very, very tragic. And it was so tragic that people felt led to hold the candlelight vigil. And have prayer, and I am all for that, folks. And I know I'm going to sound completely heartless, and know that I have been praying for the community and praying for those grieving since this had happened, and I feel terrible. But remember, the public, your elected officials and your appointed officials, they are going to distract you, and they're going to use your emotion against you. Okay, and that's what I really think they did with this visual. They, your attention was on this visual. It was public radio broadcasted it, and that it was fishy to me. I was like, and now that we know that process has failed, whether it was the ISP, local police, at the end of the day, processes failed. Gun control processes failed. Bureaucratic gun control processes failed. And, this guy was known to authorities, and he had a record. Okay. We probably saw this coming a mile away. Okay. And, at the Bloomington City Council meeting, they wanted to go to this visual instead of talking about the capital projects that included talks about the water quality. Okay, now Sheila Montney, she objected to this. She said, look, we got to talk about this now. We can't wait 3 weeks to talk about the water because people are drinking what they're describing as septic. So I'm going to take a quick second. We're going to play a little bit of this. This is Gary. He was a public comment. I think I've got it here. Here we go. Let's pull this up. Yep, Gary, public comment. Gary Lambert.
I am Gary Lambert. Just a quick comment. You've got 4 speakers, half hour potentially, and we are still limited to 3 minutes. I see no reason for it.
Me either, Gary.
Water. Don't know about yours. The smell and taste of mine is like it's runoff from a septic tank.
Oh.
I don't know how anybody stands it. I don't know how you as council members got it to this point. It's not any one individual, it's a collection over the last 30 years. We had a regional study 35 years ago called the McTaz Project. That was the long-range plan to drill wells out near the Tazewell-McLean County line. And that was to serve as a regional supply. I don't think anything's been done with it.
Isn't that always the case with government? I don't think anything's been done with it. It sounds like a more permanent solution. It sounds like a solution to the water quality, but nothing's been done with it. So I want to, fast forward a little bit into the meeting. Towards the end, the city manager, Jeff Jurgens, talked about the water quality. And I'm just going to play it. Here we go. Take a listen.
Update.
Thank you, Mayor. And I've just got a quick update regarding water. If you can put that slide up. So, first, it's good to hear that there were, some people that are not having taste and odor issue, but it's clear there are too many in our community that are, and that is not acceptable. This is a picture of Money Creek Bridge, where there should be water flowing under all of it, and you can see how low it is. Tonight, wanted to bring forward a couple of updates on things that we're doing. Tomorrow, we're going to be issuing a press release with a lot more details, but just wanted to ensure the council and the community, we take this extremely serious, and we're trying a number of different things. One thing that we're doing is we're going to test next week a temporary system that would be a potential solution to it. So we've talked and we paved the way for a longer term solution. Unfortunately, the lead time on that is early 26. So we're looking at working with the IEPA actually on a potential temporary solution that might be in place as early as next week. They've also started to slow the water over the filters and doing some different with the filtration. So we'll see if that could help to address the issue. And then we are also exploring, and we had electricians looking at, we've talked about the old PAC system, the old filtration system that went offline, 10, 20 years ago, whether or not we could get that up going again. So we're looking at that as well, and appreciate the water staff that are working on these issues and truly trying to address them. Also appreciate the assistance of the IEPA as they help to address this, but we will be sending more information out tomorrow, and wanted to let the community and the council know just some of those very quick updates.
Okay. So what I heard there is a lot of temporary fixes. And, as Gary Lambert had said, I don't know how we got to this point. Should have never gotten to this point. This has been decades in the making. And you need to know that this is not your fault. You're the one who's paying actually 33% more this year. Come May 1st, your water rate's going to increase by 33%. They increased it in 2024. They increase it in 2025. They're going to increase it next year by 33%. And then it's going to fall. Well, they're not going to increase it by 33%, but they're going to go with the CPI index, the, inflation. But they're increasing your water. So you're paying for water that you can't drink. You're paying for water where your kids come out smelling worse than they did when you put them into the bathtub. Okay. This is, you expect parents to bathe their children in this. You expect people to drink this, and it tastes like septic, according to Gary. I don't know. It's just so sad. And, to put this off, that's what really bothers me, is that they say that they're serious. They're working with the IEP on all of these different temporary solutions. We wouldn't even be here. Like Gary had said, talked about that regional study and looked at that permanent solution years ago. Okay. And nothing ever happened. We wouldn't be in this situation, but here we are. We're in this situation, and we're still passing it off 3 weeks. They made a motion to not talk about the capital projects that would have included the water quality, and they passed it off. And I get it, the vigil, the candlelight vigil, it's really, really sad. But as Sheila Montney pointed out, we have to have this discussion. These people can't wait 3 more weeks without the water. Okay. All right. Got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Hunt Cities 92.9, the News and Talk Bloomington Normal. Thank you so much. I appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. Go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. A couple more things from the Bloomington City Council meeting. I'll go ahead and find it here. This is a leftist. There were a few leftists who came up and talked about replacing those downtown buildings. They're in downtown, they're abandoned buildings, and they're going to take a wrecking ball to them, and they're going to put in parking lots. I think it's a decent idea. I mean, I know whenever I'm in downtown Bloomington, it's impossible to find parking. Most people I talk to, they talk about the lack of parking there. I think it's counterintuitive to what they want. As far as walkable city, it's kind of like the direct opposite of what they're supposed to be doing for the walkable cities. Okay, they're supposed to be making it more walkable, and you'll hear this leftist. He talks about how he calls them suburban parking lots, which is funny. Most Americans, most people who live in America, they don't like downtown areas. They don't like living in downtown areas. This individual, Noah Lang, he is a District 87 high school teacher. He made public comment, and he's kind of got a point. Like, I'm not going to like rip on him or anything. He's kind of got a point. I mean, if your whole plan is to spend, Gary talked about the $80 million number. I'll actually play maybe some of that later. Gary Lambert talked about this $80 million number. You know, it's kind of not right that they're, you know, spending all of this money and then the water quality sucks. But Noah Tang, he talked about, you know, this is a suburban parking lot. It kind of goes against their $80 million investment, okay, with the downtown Bloomington. So he'll talk about how he doesn't want the parking lots and things like that. Now, I'm all for the parking lots, but the parking lots make no sense if you're going to go through with this $80 million downtown streetscape plan, okay? And I'll play his comments. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
I would like to talk about the agenda items A and C today. Regarding the destruction of several historic properties downtown for a surface parking lot, we need to ensure that we use our guardrails of standards against this horrible building owners. So in the future, we don't have to demolish something that was neglected for so long. Our downtown needs to remain a destination, and that cannot happen if more and more of it is flattened for the placelessness of suburban style parking lots. We can put up a temporary gravel lot there to ensure something better is going to replace it. However, an asphalt parking lot up to city code would probably last decades, like the ones we see sit fallow on East Front and Gridley. The city should not adopt a business as usual approach to the redevelopment of these parcels. A new parking garage is not the solution here when there is one within 500 feet of it. People walk farther from their cars to Walmart. Also, spending millions on a parking net that will generate no tax revenue, I believe that is a generational fumble. I suggest we take a strong town's response to this and look at several blocks north on Main for examples of buildings that make our downtown lovable and livable. 20 to 25 foot wide building structure.
Okay, so he is trying to get people to come to the downtown area, and he wants something to obviously go there to entice people to go to the downtown area. I've told you, study after study indicates that Americans, they don't like downtown areas. They like visiting, you know, but they go back to their lives in suburbia. That's just the way Americans operate. They've conducted studies, and people don't even walk on the sidewalks. They walk through the grass. They don't sit on the benches. They sit on the curbs, you know. And Americans, they color outside of the lines. You can't force Americans to live a lifestyle that they don't want to live. Okay, suburbia is not demon, you know. And the leftists, they will try to make that style of life where you commute to work for 20 minutes and then you drive out to your suburban home with the picket fence, right? They try to demonize that lifestyle. That is something that is a part of the cultural fabric here in America, and that is not something to be demonized. And, you know, if people don't want to live in urban areas on top of each other in apartments above storefronts, above, you know, and that's what he's talking about. He wants a building where there's businesses at the bottom, apartments at the top, and he wants people to live in downtown Bloomington. Study after study says that's not the way people want to live their lives in America. Bloomington normal. The income is slightly higher because, you know, people are likely college graduates. Shouldn't shock us. Illinois State University, Wesleyan. There's, you know, colleges there, and it's professors and things like that. They've got the income to not live in an apartment. And Americans, even if you're a leftist, believe it or not, they prefer to live outside of the city, just by a little bit. You know, they might, you know, like the going into the city for work. They like going there to shop and everything. And this is the approach, okay, that they should be taking, I believe, downtown Bloomington. They should be doing more parking lots there, making it easier to access what's already there, and not doing this $80 million project to make it more walkable, livable, and lovable. Okay, that's what he wants, this Noah Tang individual. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. You know, Gary Lambert, I played his public comment. He talked about how the water tastes like septic. He talked about that at the city council meeting. He also pointed out that he only had 3 minutes to talk about it during public comment. And he goes, I just don't see a reason why I should only have 3 minutes to talk about this. This is my water. For God's sakes, we're talking about my water tasting like poo. Okay. So he talked about that at public comment, but he also brought up the $80 million. Now, I have not seen that number, and that sounds about right. That $60 million number for the downtown Bloomington streetscape, I've always said sounds kind of low. And he says, why are we spending money on that and not the basic infrastructure? And I played for you, you know, they're coming up with some temporary solutions with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency on how to provide you clean tasting water. And these are all temporary fixes. Gary pointed out that, you know, this has been decades in the making. There was a regional study done to dig wells, which was a more permanent solution to the water issue that Bloomington has been facing for decades. And I guess historically, when they've changed lakes, the Bloomington officials, they kind of let this go. You know, if they change lakes where the water source comes from, if they change the lakes, there's a difference in taste, and usually people stop griping about it. You stop griping about it because you get used to the taste. But this is a little bit different in that it tastes really bad, apparently. So Gary Lambert talked about the $80 million for the downtown Bloomington streetscape. Also at the Bloomington City Council meeting, there were some leftists who showed up and they wanted to protest these parking lots. Look, I'm not like super ecstatic about the parking lots. I think that the downtown Bloomington area needs more parking. Somebody actually commented, you know, Kat, instead of talking about parking lots, they should really be fixing the road around the town first. They should be fixing Bloomington roads. I know at some point, I think that there was like a ranking where Bloomington like ranked pretty low as far as Illinois roads go. Yeah, they need to be fixing the roads and stop worrying about parking lots. I get that. But like Bloomington downtown, it could use some more parking lots, and they're taking a wrecking ball essentially to these abandoned buildings, and they're going to flatten it and make it into asphalt parking lot that's up to code. And I kind of like that idea, but is so counterintuitive to their downtown Bloomington streetscapes plan. And Noah Tang, he's a Bloomington District 87 school teacher. He's a leftist, and you know he wants to make it more livable, you know, the downtown Bloomington area. And I've talked about this several times. I can't talk about this enough. Study after study shows that people don't like, Americans specifically, don't like living in apartment, and you have to look at the demographics of Bloomington Normal as well. People are typically a little higher income, college educated. They're going to live outside of the they're not going to live in an apartment above storefronts. Okay. And he wants to make it more livable. And I get that, considering we're spending $80 million, we're making an $80 million investment apparently into the downtown Bloomington streetscape. And it's counterintuitive to put these parking lots here because, as Noah Tang calls them, they are suburban parking lots. I think he said something like that. So I'm going to play this clip here. I got to take a quick break, but I want to play a little bit of Noah Tang. He made public comment, and he, you know, is not for the asphalt parking lots. He would like to see probably like a business go up there with apartment buildings at the top, which would actually reflect the $80 million investment that they're putting into the Bloomington downtown streetscape. Okay, they want to make it more walkable. Putting parking lots in there, it contradicts their plans for the downtown Bloomington streetscape. So I'm going to be back. We'll play that public comment really quick, and then I want to shift gears. Let's talk about Governor J.B. Pritzker. He's talking about how RFK Jr.'s health views and his plans are dangerous, misguided, and deeply disturbing. This is hilarious coming from a guy who is objectively obese. I'm not saying that as a joke. It's true. Objectively, he's obese. So it's weird that he's talking about health views, and he expects us to take his advice when it comes to health. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're doing a lot of local stuff this morning here, at least in the 6 o'clock hour. I'm going to get to Governor J.B. Pritzker here in just a second, but we're also going to get to Kamala Harris. She was touring the California wildfire destruction, and she said something very inspiring. No, she didn't say anything very inspiring. In very much Kamala Harris fashion, she did not say anything intelligent, okay, about the California wildfire destruction. So we're going to get to that. I also want to get to Ilhan Omar, who may or may not have slept with her brother. Ilhan Omar, she goes on this anti-American rant, okay, and she declares you being the stupid one. Ilhan Omar, yes, who came from Somalia. We made her a congresswoman, the first ever, how do I say this? I don't even, Somalian, Muslim American congresswoman. Okay, she was the first woman of color to represent Minnesota and one of the first 2 Muslim American women elected to Congress. Okay, and she fled from Somalia when she was 8 years old, came to America. We welcomed her in open arms, and yet she has the nerve to say that Americans are stupid for electing Donald Trump, okay? And she thinks Trump won because of the level of stupidity that Americans are displaying every single day, and she describes it as, quite frankly, embarrassing, okay? So this is Ilhan Omar. We're going to get to the leftist here, Noah Tang, and how he, doesn't want to see the parking lots. Look, it doesn't make sense considering the downtown Bloomington streetscape. It really doesn't. The parking lots, if that's what they're going to spend this $80 million on, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because the whole purpose of the downtown Bloomington streetscape is to make it more livable. And when you flatten it, okay, and you make it into like a suburban attraction, that is the direct opposite of what the plan is for downtown Bloomington streetscape. So I don't understand the parking lot situation. I think that's it. Like, abandon the downtown Bloomington streetscape thing. Okay, abandon the $80 million project. Just stop it. Okay, and then revitalize. Maybe give it a little facelift. Downtown Bloomington. Make sure you're getting the garbage. Okay, that's what I've heard from downtown Bloomington business owners. Is the garbage situation is terrible. Clean up the homeless issue. Let's get the homelessness under control in the downtown Bloomington area. Yeah, let's clean it up, and then let's put a parking lot there and make it more of a suburbia attraction, where people can drive in on Saturdays and shop. Okay. That is the goal. The goal shouldn't be to have people live there, because study after study tells us that not a lot of people like living in downtown or downtown areas, urban areas. That is just not really the demographic of Bloomington normal either. A lot of these people are college educated, have the income to live in a single family home, and not in multifamily housing. And it just won't work. Okay. This forcing people to live in an urban area. Now, unless you want, and now that's the thing about Bloomington, there's very, very, or like not very high, but, middle class individuals. And then you have low income. Okay. So like homeless and low income. Now, unless you want to make the downtown Bloomington area a place for the public housing, Section 8 housing, whatever, if you want to make it a place for that, that would kind of make sense for low-income individuals. But, this downtown Bloomington streetscape, what they want to do is attract, high-income earners to the area to revitalize the economy, and I understand that. But the downtown Bloomington streetscape thing is not going to do it. You have to suburbanize it. You have to make it friendly to people who live in suburbia, because it's never going to be an area where people will want to live. Okay. Will want to, willingly live there. Now, if you have people who are low income and Section 8 housing and you make it a place for that, that might, work out. But yeah, I just think that they've gone about this all wrong. They need to abandon the downtown Bloomington streetscape plan 100%. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yes, $80 million, I guess, is this new number that I've heard. I thought it was 60 million, somewhere between there, I guess. It's a multi-million-dollar project, okay, the downtown Bloomington streetscape. Now, I want to play Noah Tang. He's a District 87 school teacher, high school teacher, I think. And he talked about, now they're protesting the parking lots. Okay, there's a couple of abandoned buildings. They're going to take a wrecking ball, flatten it, asphalt, and they're going to make these parking lots. Okay, this is so contradictory to what they want to do with the downtown Bloomington streetscape plan. They want to make it more walkable, more livable, more lovable. Okay, that is the downtown Bloomington streetscape plan. These parking lots are contradictory to that plan. So if you're spending $80 million to make it walkable and livable, why the hell would you want parking lots? Okay. Noah Tang describes the parking lots as like suburbia parking lots. Take a listen. I agree. Okay, so I'm not totally against what he says here. I mean, he's obviously a leftist and he wants, downtown Bloomington to be livable and lovable. I disagree. I think that they should abandon the downtown Bloomington's streetscape plan entirely, and they should make it more of a suburbia attraction, okay, where people can drive in, shop a little bit, and then leave. Okay. That's what has been proven to work study after study. People don't really like it's an American culture thing. Okay, it is a fabric. And especially if you look at the demographics, Bloomington Normal, they're college educated, higher income earners. Now we have a large disparity here where we've got homelessness and low income families in Bloomington, and then we've got like a higher income higher income individuals in Bloomington Normal. Now, if they wanted to do this, which I don't suggest that they do this because I think it's just going to turn into a big problem, Section 8 housing and using downtown Bloomington maybe even as like a place to try to correct the homelessness problem, which I don't think that's, I wouldn't do that, but you can't you can't force it, okay? People like suburbia. They've done these downtown Bloomingtons or downtown streetscapes in the past, and study after study shows that people don't even really use the sidewalks. They walk through the grass. They don't even really use the benches. They sit on the curbs. Okay, so they're going to put $80 million into this. I don't know. That's a new number. 60 million is last I heard, but 80 million sounds more right. They're going to invest all this money into something that people aren't really going to utilize totally. They should make it more into a suburbia attraction. I think that it would do better. I think that you'd get more people to spend their money in downtown Bloomington if you were to make it more suburbia friendly and add more parking. Yeah, so that was Noah Tang. The leftists were also against this Hamilton Road extension. And for good reason. State Farm is going more remotely. There's probably not a big reason to extend that Hamilton Road anymore. But this has been planned, I guess, for decades. And there's state and federal tax dollars that are state and federal funding that has been dedicated to this, and you can't really use it for any other purpose. And they're, arguing against the Hamilton Road extension, but this is already kind of a done deal. But that went over their heads, the leftist heads, and they don't, yeah. So that was the Bloomington City Council meeting. I want to come back. We're going to talk about Governor J.B. Pritzker lecturing Americans on their health. I think that's hilarious because Governor J.B. Pritzker is objectively obese. Okay, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're going to talk about JB, and then I'm going to get to Kamala Harris here in just a second. But according to ABC article that was promoted by Governor JB Pritzker on X Twitter, this is what ABC said. The freshly confirmed U.S. Senate, freshly confirmed by the U.S. Senate Human Health Secretary, HHS Robert F. Kennedy Jr. told the room packed full of federal workers that he plans to investigate whether the timing of childhood vaccines and antidepressant medications are among several possible factors for the nation's health problem, okay, with chronic disease, health problems, the chronic disease problem. He wants to see if antidepressants and if childhood vaccines are possible factors in chronic diseases, okay. And I don't see a problem with this. ABC is trying to frame this as if this is an issue. I see this as, hey, let's question everything. Let's get to the bottom of why these chronic diseases are happening. ADHD, things like that. Vaccinations, childhood vaccinations. He just wants to look into this and get to the bottom of why we're experiencing the chronic diseases. And the fact that the left isn't even willing to question this and get to the bottom of it and get to the truth, okay? That's what I'm talking about here, is getting to the truth. And RFK is about that. And the fact that they're not the left, and they'd rather be, beholden to the interest of Big Pharma. If you guys haven't watched this film, I actually watched it the other day. It's called Pain Hustlers, okay? And it actually does a pretty decent job, and it's on Netflix, and usually that stuff winds up being pretty leftist and, it has a leftist lens to it. The only, issue with that film, I don't know if you guys have seen it, Pain Hustlers on Netflix, the only issue is that they don't talk about the politicians who have allowed Big Pharma to operate the way they have. Okay, Big Pharma is so corrupt, and it's very similar to, I will never forget. I mean, I think I was invited by a couple of politicians when I was, covering state politics at the Capitol. I was invited to drinking parties. Okay, and you shouldn't be shocked by this. Okay, your government officials, they love to drink, they love to go out, and they love to use their per diems on lunches and figure out a way to make your life miserable via legislation, okay? Your government officials are, and I say this all the time, losers from high school that never grew up, okay? That's really what they are, and I watched, I'm not kidding you, a couple of state lawmakers, somebody slapped somebody on the butt as if it was like a little frat house, okay? It's like a frat house in there. I'll never forget this. This is like so ridiculous. They were talking about how they are allowed to wear tennis shoes around the Capitol now. I guess there was a dress code and you couldn't wear tennis shoes. I've got no issue with the tennis shoe issue or the tennis shoe thing. I think that, yeah, sure, if you want to wear tennis shoes, it's a big building. There's lots of stairs. You got to walk around a lot. Sure, wear some damn tennis shoes. Some Democrat, pushed for a change to the dress code, and they got it to where the lawmakers could wear tennis shoes. And they were like celebrating this during like a point of recognition, like on the floor. I think it was on the Senate floor. And I just my jaw dropped. I was like, this is what they're talking about. There's so many things in Illinois. The crime, the Chicago crime, the out of control bureaucracy when it comes to gun control and how those processes don't work. How some places like Bloomington don't even have clean drinking water. Okay. There's so many other things that you could be talking about. And you're talking about, and celebrating how you get to wear tennis shoes. Okay. This is so stupid. And they are losers in high school that didn't want to go into the private sector because they couldn't make it. Okay. And they decided to never leave college, never leave high school, and they went straight into government. Okay. And they do parties, they drink, and it's very comparable to a frat house or sorority. Okay. And they're all buddies, and it's just so gross. Same thing with Big Pharma. Now, the movie Pain Hustlers, this is what I was talking about. The main premise of the film is that there are these farmer girls who go out and they sell these medications, and they get these doctors to sell, just prescribe these medications, and then the doctors get a cut of the money, okay, that the supplier of the drug gets, every time they make a sale, essentially. And it's quite disturbing. But that movie, it doesn't talk about how our our elected officials enable that sort of behavior. So I'm back. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Count on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I want to talk about J.B. Pritzker, okay? If we're going to talk about physical standards, there is no way Governor J.B. Pritzker should be lecturing Americans on their health, okay? If we're going to be talking about health, physical standards, given that he is objectively obese, okay, morbidly obese. Okay, so there is no man, like, Pritzker should not be lecturing Americans about their health and talking about the health views of RFK Jr. Okay, he believes that he should be some sort of authority, Governor J.B. Pritzker, on public health. Subsequently, he has vowed to push back on any attempts to disrupt the health and safety of Illinoisans. Okay, so this is what he said in a tweet, Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's a cupcake away from a triple pie mass, by the way. Okay, so he is not somebody who embodies health. Okay, you don't look at Governor J.B. Pritzker and say, that's a healthy guy. You just don't. Okay, so RFK Jr., this is what Governor J.B. Pritzker says on X. RFK Jr.'s views are dangerous, misguided, and deeply disturbing. Frankly, his policies will hurt people. I will push back on any attempts to disrupt the health and safety of Illinoisans. Okay, so this is what Governor J.B. Pritzker said on X. The lack of self-awareness here is absolutely astonishing. He believes you are as dumb as he is, and he's got the nerve to lecture the masses about their best interest. Okay, and this is typical tyrant behavior. He's lecturing you about your health. He thinks that he knows all. And it's just so hilarious because we clearly can see with our eyes that he doesn't know all about the health, about health views and plans. He doesn't practice it himself, clearly. So this is a ABC article that was promoted, and this should, anytime a government official shares an article, just look at like anytime a government official shares an article, look at the individuals publishing this. Okay, ABC being promoted by Governor J.B. Pritzker, that probably should tell you a ton about ABC. Okay. Freshly confirmed, this is ABC, freshly confirmed by the U.S. Senate, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. told a room packed full of federal health workers that he plans to investigate whether the timing of childhood vaccines and antidepressant medications are among several possible factors in the nation's problem with chronic diseases. Okay, ABC frames this as if this is a bad thing. Okay. No, we should be getting to the truth here. Okay, the fact that the left doesn't want to get to the truth and to the bottom of what is causing chronic diseases, these are new, semi-new things, antidepressant, vaccinations, children receiving these vaccinations. This is, we want to see if there's a correlation. Chronic diseases started going up after these things started really being pushed. And he wants to see if there's a correlation and causation. He wants to make sure that this isn't what's causing the chronic health diseases. And I don't understand what's the big deal here. We're trying to get to the truth, and I don't know why the left is so politically beholden to big pharma that they're not interested in getting to the truth and studying whether or not how antidepressant medications contribute to chronic diseases or the timing of childhood vaccinations, whether those contribute to chronic diseases. Okay, I don't understand what the big deal is because, look, folks, they are so emboldened, beholden to the big pharma industry. This is one of the most corrupt organizations. I highly recommend you go check out Pain Hustlers on Netflix. I actually watched that recently. It talks about the big pharma corruption. The only thing that they leave out, probably on purpose, Netflix being the leftist organization that it is, or the leftist company that it is, they don't talk about how the government officials, your elected officials like Dick Durbin, embolden big pharma to be as corrupt as they are, okay, by eliminating the competition. Okay, big pharma is the biggest drug dealing They are drug dealers. Okay, big pharma, the pharma girls that push these medications and get the doctors to prescribe these medications, and then the doctors make a pretty penny off of it, and the drug companies make a big penny or a nice penny off of it. It's drug dealing. That's what it is. It's illegal drug dealing, and Dick Durbin has tried to attack supplements, the supplement industry, because supplements are effective. People buy them because they work, and they're healthier. I mean, for you, there's no side effects really to taking vitamin C. Okay, there's no side effects to taking vitamin B, vitamin D, and they want to eliminate that industry or regulate it to a point where it's impossible to operate in that space, the supplement industry space. And they want to do everything they can to embolden big pharma even more by eliminating the competition, which is the supplement industry. And Dick Durbin has led the charge on that. No medical professional would tell you that Pritzker's health and lifestyle is superior over RFK Jr.'s. Okay. Pritzker's health and lifestyle, I'm telling you, that is probably not I don't know, I'm not his doctor, right? But I'm going to objectively look at him and say, yeah, probably not like a lifestyle that is long, it has longevity to it. Okay. So I don't know why he feels like he can get out there and call RFK Jr.'s health views dangerous, misguided, and deeply disturbing. I don't know how he could do that with a straight face. Okay. Based on your own lifestyle, I think that this is a little bit of projection. So this was on X. Governor J.B. Pritzker, like I said, I think he's a cupcake away from a triple bypass here. Okay, folks. It's just so annoying that the left, they will do everything they can to protect the interests of big pharma, even if that means not conducting studies to see if they are possible factors. Okay, this in ABC framing this as if it's like a bad thing to investigate to see if antidepressants and to see if the timing of childhood vaccines contribute to chronic diseases. They frame this in such a way that this is, a bad thing. I think that getting down to the truth about why we're experiencing an uptick in diseases, perhaps a correlation, we've seen more people on antidepressants than ever. Maybe it is causation, okay? And that's what RFK is trying to do. Okay, I want to get to The View because they claim it's anti-Christian to oppose wokeness, okay? So and then they mock Christians, The View, the ladies on The View. I also want to get to Kamala Harris. She took a tour of the California wildfire destruction, and she said something very inspiring. Not, okay, that was sarcasm. She did not say something inspiring at all. It shouldn't shock you. It's Kamala Harris. Come on now, folks. All right, let's get to The View. Wokeness is a religion. We know that. And the ladies on The View say opposing wokeness is, quote, ungodly. Okay, so let's take a listen. Here we go.
I thought about the conversations you and I have had, Whoopi, so many times about the co-opting of the word woke. And the fact that the right somehow has made it a dirty word. To be woke is a word that came out of the African-American community. And it was about acknowledging social justice inequities, acknowledging people's suffering. It is not a bad thing to care about other people, to care about the sufferings of others, and to act upon it. And so Whoopi will often tell me, well, I've never been asleep. Yeah. And that's how I feel. My parents, they grew up in the civil rights movement. I grew up in the late 60s, 70s. I was always a part of it. And so I've never been asleep. And so it angers me when people are like, this woke stuff, it's got to go. That's telling me that you don't care about my lived experience. You don't care about the oppression of the LGBTQ community. You don't care about the oppression of the disabled. You don't care about the oppression of immigrants. You don't care about your fellow neighbor. And that is ungodly. That is not Christian. So.
Okay, so that was the ladies in the View talking about wokeness. Being against wokeness is apparently ungodly. Okay, wokeness is a religion, and anytime somebody says and they justify something because of your lived experience, it's almost always wrong. Okay, is a stupid phrase, lived experience. Secondly, she claims that wokeness is all about ending suffering, and that is completely delusional. That is not true. Wokeness is not about ending suffering. It's not possible to end suffering. Okay, suffering will always be here. You can't end suffering. It's delusional. It's a delusional. And if you claim that wokeness is and being woke is all about ending suffering, okay, but like you can't. Okay, it's deranged that they think that they can engineer society in such a way to end suffering. You can't end suffering. It will always be there because we live in an imperfect world because we're sinful people. Okay. And while they say it's not a bad, and I do want to say that it's not a bad thing to care about people who are suffering. Okay. Wokeness always attempts to correct these things at the expense of the majority of the population. Okay. So for example, the wokeness of, the lived experience and sympathizing with the lived experience of a trans woman, aka a man who believes he is a woman. Okay. That's woke to try to put him in women's sports. Okay. You are, how do I say this? You are doing that, and you are trying to affirm his lived experience by having a majority of the population women suffer, okay, with that choice of allowing him to compete against them when he clearly has a biological advantage. Okay. So additionally, these corrections tend to uplift others who don't deserve it. Okay. So for example, welfare. You're providing government dollars to people who, just won't get a job in some cases, and they're on welfare, and I'm not totally against welfare, totally against SNAP or anything. If you're in a tough spot, those programs are there to help you. But there are people who have been living on welfare and they do not want to get another job, and they won't get another job or get a job at all. And those people don't deserve it. And you're demonizing a majority of people and mocking people who work hard for their dollars and don't live off of other people's money. Okay, this is wokeness. Okay, that's what wokeness is tearing down the majority of the population in order to uplift people who don't deserve it or who are living an experience that is deranged in the case of transgender men or transgender women. Okay. And I love how she brings up the civil rights movement, right? Ending slavery had nothing to do with wokeness. We were morally obligated to do it. Abraham Lincoln, a Republican, by the way, felt morally obligated to do it. And it was an evil. And the fact that wokeness wants to take credit for that is stupid, because this is a political party. Democrats fought a war to keep slavery going, by the way. So the people who are advocating for wokeness right now, they're the same people who fought a war to keep slavery going. So the lack of self-awareness here is, and this is a lack of self-awareness no one knew was possible. It's disingenuous to claim that wokeness contributed to the civil rights movement, the Civil Rights Act, the passage when the Southern Democrats, they held the longest filibuster in American history to keep the Civil Rights Act from passing. So not only were the Democrats, the Southern Democrats, all about slavery, and they fought a war to keep it going, okay, but they also, when the Civil Rights Act in the 60s, the Civil Rights Movement, the Southern Democrats, they held the longest filibuster in American history to get it to not pass. So, these ladies on The View, they pretend like they don't align with that same party that wanted to expand slavery, pushed to stop the Civil Rights Act from passing. And they pretend like they're not aligned with that party. And then they pretend like their ideology isn't based on skin color. Like they aren't about that ideology where it's based on like your character, okay, with the content of your character over the skin color, okay. They don't hold that. They believe they see everything through a racial lens. So yeah, this is just ridiculous. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We're going to wrap this story up a little bit later, and then we're going to get to Kamala Harris. She toured the California wildfire destruction, and she said something truly inspiring. I'll be right back with that. You know, I think it's kind of funny. Governor J.B. Pritzker is not interested in helping the people of Illinois. He's too busy enjoying war games with President Donald Trump and Republicans. He's setting the stage for a run for Democrat or for the Democratic president in 2028. Yeah, 100%, Tim. You're right. But it's not working. That's the hilarious part about all of this. It's not working in that Governor J.B. Pritzker got out there, called Trump a bunch of and Republicans Nazis, and to be honest with you, that during his State of the State address, and that was the goal of, trying to get, but it's not really working in that he's not hitting national headlines like you would think would imagine he would. Okay. National media have picked up on it, sure, but it's not dominating the news cycle like I think that Governor J.B. Pritzker had hoped. Okay, so he can set the stage all he wants, but even the left, the media, the leftist controlled media, they're not even really paying that much attention to Governor J.B. Pritzker calling Trump a Nazi and Republican Nazis. And, he's fighting these little war games, as you put them, with Trump and Republicans. They're really not even paying attention all that much to Governor J.B. Pritzker and his screaming. And he's screaming pretty loudly, folks, okay, to try to set the stage for that Democratic presidential run, but it's not working. Everyone has stolen the meaning of woke. Woke is opening your eyes so that you can see on any subject matter. I don't know how to continue or how to, drill this into your head, man, but woke, there is a premise about being woke, okay? It's opening your eyes, and it's so hard to kind of describe. Woke is like tearing the majority of the population down to uplift people who really don't deserve it. Okay. Everything woke is based on that ideology. Okay. Equity, right? That's what woke is all about. Being woke, opening up your eyes. And they tried to say that, wokeness is what ended slavery. No, it was morally wrong. It was morally wrong from the beginning. All men are created equal. It was unconstitutional. Slavery, it was, everybody is endowed with these unalienable rights by a creator. Okay. And that's laid out in our founding documents, and our founders laid that out very clearly. Slavery was always against those principles. Okay. It was always a morally wrong thing. And wokeness didn't contribute to that at all. Okay. The majority of the population did believe, which is why we won the Civil War, by the way, the Republicans and Abraham Lincoln. Okay. The majority of the population believed it was a morally corrupt thing, and they were morally obligated to end slavery. The majority of people, the only people, and this shouldn't shock you, that were against that, and this is wokeness, they wanted to fight the majority of the population, and they wanted to keep slavery going, which is why the Southern Democrats fought this war to keep slavery going. Okay, so sure, they were woke even back then. Okay, they wanted to uplift a very small portion of the population, the Southern Democrats who wanted to keep their slaves, over the majority of the population. And at the time, slavery, this wasn't really, it was a controversial issue, but the majority of the population of the United States at the time, they agreed that we were morally obligated to end slavery. Okay. And the Southern Democrats, for example, majority filibuster, okay, the civil rights movement, the Southern Democrats, they held the longest filibuster in American history to stop the Civil Rights Act from passing. Okay, so the majority of Congress, they wanted to end civil rights atrocities. They wanted to pass the Civil Rights Act, but guess who held it up? Southern Democrats. Democrats again. So the majority of the people, represented in Congress, by the way, they wanted to pass the Civil Rights Act, but it was held up by Democrats again. So that's the premise of wokeness, is at the expense of the majority of the population, what they believe is morally, or what we have to morally do and what we're morally obligated to do, they uplift others who don't deserve it. Okay. And they mock people for hard work. They mock people for their moral code and their moral obligations and wanting to follow those moral obligations. That's what wokeness is. I love this. Bob on the YouTube. You guys can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can subscribe to the channel. Bob, he says, woke equals communism. Exactly. It's so hard to kind of describe, but really at the end of the day, what wokeness is, it is at the expense of the majority of the population. So for example, the ladies on The View, they talked about slavery and how slavery was ended because of wokeness. Actually quite the opposite. The Southern Democrats, it's all about the majority of the population and what they want. So during the Civil War, majority of people believed that they were morally obligated to end slavery. Even the founding fathers felt morally obligated that ending slavery had to be done eventually. So most people, including Abraham Lincoln, wanted to end slavery, who was a Republican, by the way. Most people felt morally obligated to end slavery. Now, the Southern Democrats, they wanted to uplift a very small portion of the population, the Southern Democrats, the slave owners, and they wanted to uplift those people. And they fought a war to keep slavery going. Okay, they fought this war to keep slavery going. And fast forward to the 60s, civil rights movement, the Civil Rights Act. The majority of Congress wanted it passed. This was the longest filibuster in American history. The Democrats were the ones who wanted to stop it passing. So again, you have the majority of the population believing in a believing that they are morally obligated to do a thing. So whether that's uplift or help women and keep women safe in female sports by not allowing men to compete against them. Okay. A majority of the population, we talked about this yesterday, 80% of the population, 80% of Americans believe that is right. Okay. That females participate in their female category, and trans men or trans women, men, shouldn't be allowed to compete against women. A majority of the population believe that is the morally correct thing to do. A majority of the population believed that ending slavery was the correct thing to do. Majority of the population, again, passing the Civil Rights Act during the Civil Rights movement, a majority of the population, the American population, believed that was the right thing to do. Democrats, Southern Democrats, they stopped the Civil Rights Act because they wanted to uplift a very small portion of the population. Democrats, they wanted to keep slavery going. They fought a war for it to uplift a very small portion of the population, the slave owners. Okay. And they're doing it again they wanted to allow men, Democrats want to allow men to compete against females in female sports in the female category, to again uplift a very small portion of the population over the majority of the population who believe that they're morally obligated to protect women in female sports and allow integrity in competition. Okay. So wokeness is communism. Wokeness is going against the majority of the population and what they believe is morally correct, and uplifting people who don't deserve it. Okay. That's what wokeness is all about. And these ladies, they pretend like they don't align with the Democrat Party, the party that wanted to expand slavery, the party that almost stopped the Civil Rights Act from passing. And they pretend like they're not aligned with the party that believes people should be treated on the basis of their skin color and not the content of their character. These ladies on The View align themselves with that party, and it's pathetic. It's pathetic. woke does not mean that you hate disabled people. Woke does not mean that you hate Black people. Woke does not, or not being woke does not mean that you hate disabled people. Not being woke does not mean you hate Black people. Not being woke is being the majority of the population who believe in a morally correct thing. Okay, so yeah, like I said, the ladies on The View, they've got a lot of bad takes. This was pretty much one of the worst ones yet. They're saying that wokeness is not being woke is ungodly. Okay, whatever. I'm going to switch gears. We'll talk about Kamala Harris here. I do want to get to this article. Kamala Harris. She was in California and she was kind of like taking a tour, I guess, of the damage and of the California wildfire destruction. And, you know, she said something really inspiring here, folks. She was asked for her thoughts on the LA wildfires. And I know what you're thinking. She definitely is going to say something profound here. She's going to say something inspiring for the victims of these LA wildfires. Take a listen. Here we go.
What goes through your mind when you see this? You're here. You're now seeing it up close.
It's not only seeing it, Alex, you can smell it. You can feel it, right? So it's seeing it with our eyes, and many people have seen it. You all are covering it. But to literally be on the ground here, you can smell the smoke that was here. You can feel the toxicity, frankly, of the environment. You can feel the energy of all of the folks who are still here on the ground.
What goes through your mind?
Oh gosh, you know, as much money as she has, you would think that she'd hire some sort of speaking coach, somebody to help her put basic sentences together. But I guess that hasn't crossed her mind to hire somebody to help her speak, because she continues to toss word salad here and say foolish words every time she opens up her mouth. So she hasn't hired a speech coach yet. And I think that she's wanting to run for California governor. This is probably why she went to the disaster site to do like this disingenuous PR move. It's a public relations stunt. Politicians, you know, most politicians, they can speak at a kindergarten level. Okay. That is not the case for Kamala Harris. Anybody would be better than Kamala Harris. I'm going to say this, in the California governor spot. Okay. I think that that's what she's running for. I think that's what she's going for. So to be fair, yes, the smell, I've seen it on X. People talk about the smell and how it's like they've never, like a smell they've never smelled before. I can understand that, but I mean, we're talking about a politician, and she didn't have anything better to say than you can smell the fire. Okay. Yes, we all know that you can smell the smoke, Kamala. You're a politician and we expect more from you. Okay. People on X, the residents there, they're obviously saying that they can smell it. And it's like a smell they've never smelled before, but we're expecting more from you. Aren't you running for like governor or something? Okay. Which she hasn't officially announced, but that's my speculation here. I think that she will be announcing a run for the California governor. And by claiming you can feel the toxicity, quote, frankly, of the environment, probably means nothing more than there are chemicals in the air, which, you know, wouldn't normally be there, which is probably correct. Yes, there's toxicity in the air because buildings burn down, plastic burn down, there's toxicity in the air. Yeah, that's what happens after a fire. So that's a painfully obvious statement. And I don't know why she said it. Okay, it's painfully obvious that yes, there's toxicity in the air. Yes, there's smoke in the air. Yes, you can smell the smoke. So not very inspiring coming from the perspective, she's wanting to be governor. You should say something more inspiring than that, right? Not to mention, you know, she repeated the phrase the multiple times, trying to work up the courage here, I guess, to say something and to put her thoughts together. But she just kind of came off as a mindless buffoon. I'm sorry, but definitely did not take away anything inspiring from her statement here. So the people of California have already suffered so much. I don't know. I hope that they realize that, you know, they can't put Kamala Harris in charge. Otherwise, they're probably going to go through the same thing. I never will put this past progressive voters, naive voters. They might just vote her in because they vote incompetent people in all of the time. Look at Gavin Newsom. He's the reason why these fires probably started. well, actually, definitely, I can say that he's a big reason why these fires started. Lack of forest management, water storage, all of that. That was all on him. And the state of California and LA also diverting funds from the fire department budget. You can't make this up. There are all kinds of incompetent people there. So I hope that the progressive voters learn from this and they don't rationalize in their head somehow that these incompetent people are going to, deliver on their promises. But I empathize with the people of California. This is going to suck if Kamala Harris is elected governor for sure, and they've already been through so much. All right, I want to talk about Ilhan Omar. Like I said, she may or may not have slept with her brother, okay, or may not have married her brother, okay, had a relationship with her brother, by the way. That is true, okay, so you can go check it out. Check out the details about Omar and her possible relationship with her brother. So she is out there and she's doing what she does best, and that is slandering the American way of life, slandering our culture. Although this is a place where she fled to at 8 years old, and America welcomed her with open arms, and she became the first woman of color to represent Minnesota, and she's like one of 2 Muslim Americans to be elected to Congress. We welcomed her with open arms, and she has the nerve to disparage American way of life, and she says that, quote, the level of stupidity that Americans are displaying every single day, which she describes as frankly embarrassing with the whole Donald Trump and electing him thing. So I'm going to play this clip of Ilhan Omar and how ungrateful really she is that to a country that afforded her all of these wonderful opportunities to be an elected official, by the way. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. That's hilarious. Nice. It's because she's high. Yeah, let's take a listen to this one more time. Why not, right? This is just, I mean, so inspiring. Just so
What
inspiring.
goes through your mind when you see this? You're here, you're now seeing it up close.
It's not only seeing it, Alex, you can smell it. You can feel it, right? So it's seeing it with our eyes, and many people have seen it. You all are covering it. But to literally be on the ground here, you can smell the smoke that was here. You can feel the toxicity, frankly, of the environment. You can feel the energy of all of the folks who are still here on the ground.
What goes through your mind when you see this? You're here, you're now seeing it up close.
It's
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. It's because she high. I love that comment. That's amazing. That is probably the best description I could say about this woman in this clip. Go ahead, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Earlier in the show, we did talk a lot of local things. Christopher Simmons, long rap sheet, okay, had DUI violations, traffic violations, also had a misdemeanor gun charge. Misdemeanor gun charge might have been why he had his FOID revoked. ISP, they did not follow through after he had not submitted a record. It's called a firearm disposition record. You're supposed to submit that detailing to law enforcement, detailing to the Illinois State Police what you did with your gun. Okay, after your FOID has been revoked, you're supposed to do that. He clearly didn't do that, which should lead law enforcement to confiscating after somebody fails to do that and does this process. That should lead to law enforcement, whether the local or the ISP, they can conduct a confiscation or a seizure, really, of the weapons, okay, that were obtained legally prior to his FOID revocation. That didn't happen, obviously. I would imagine it didn't happen. I'm going to try to contact local enforcement today to see if there was some sort of seizure that taken place. Clearly not, or they might have missed this gun. I don't know. 2021, he bought it legally with his FOID. But shortly between this time, 2025, when the gun went off, killing 3 people and then himself, triple homicide, suicide. Between this time period, he kept this gun that he legally obtained, obviously. So we talked about that, and how bureaucratic gun control processes failed. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what happened. So we talked about that. Christopher Simmons, very tragic. There was a vigil that they had hosted. And, I know that I might sound heartless about this, and I'm not trying to in any kind of way, but visuals can tend to be a distraction. They play on your emotions, your elected officials. They made a motion to not discuss capital projects, including the water in Bloomington, to talk about or to allow officials to attend the visual. And really, at the end of the day, what I see here is a distraction. Not that prayer is a distraction or anything, but leave that to the community. And you, as a public official, as an elected official, you have an obligation to serve and to protect the individuals in Bloomington who are drinking perhaps not safe water. Okay, so you have an obligation to do that. You've had an obligation to do that for decades. They passed it off, and they won't be talking about it for another few weeks. Okay, so the visual, always be just alert of what your government does and says. They are trying to distract you from the true questions that you need to ask about this story. Hey, what processes failed? Okay, well, how in the world was this guy able to have a gun when we have all these gun control laws? Democrats have fought for these gun control laws in Illinois, but for some odd reason, it feels like it doesn't matter how many gun control laws you pass, the bureaucracy and the processes always wind up failing anyway. So the FOID card, stupid piece of plastic, criminals are going to, they're going to get the gun. This one was legally obtained and wasn't confiscated, obviously, by anybody. But at the end of the day, he's a criminal, had a criminal rap sheet, like DUI, and misdemeanor gun charge, which might have sparked the revocation of his FOID card, by the way, because charges can sometimes lead to the FOID card revocation, depending on the charge. I didn't know misdemeanors could do that, but maybe. Also, something that could spark a revocation of a FOID card would be institutionalizing yourself or going to the hospital and turning yourself in, essentially, for suicidal ideation and things like that. So, don't know exactly why his FOID card was revoked. There's a plethora of probably reasons or potential reasons as to why it was revoked. Most likely, it was the misdemeanor gun charge on his rap sheet. So, yeah, at the end of the day, they will distract you with your emotions. They'll get you to go to this visual, watch the visual, and yes, we should pray and come together as a community, but we should also come together as a community and point out the failures of our bureaucracies, okay, and of law enforcement who allowed him to be in legal possession of this gun. Those are our laws here in Illinois. I don't like them, but those are the laws, okay, and they didn't follow through. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I do want to get to this. This is Ilhan Omar, who may or may not have married her brother. This is, of course, has been rumored for a long time. And there's been documents that have come out that have confirmed, her marrying her brother. She, of course, denies all of these documents and these records that she did indeed marry her brother. Go check out the records. I mean, that's you know what I mean? So there's confirmation here with the records anyway. So I don't know. She says she denies all of this, but there was a report, records that have confirmed that she married her brother, Ahmed Elmi is her brother, and that this would be her second husband according to records. Okay, so is actually her brother. And, people say that this was a scam to get him immigration papers, by the way. Anyway, she came here to America, 8 years old, fled from Somalia. America welcomed her with open arms. She has a lot to thank this country for, considering that she is a congresswoman, one of 2 Muslim Americans elected to Congress. She was the first woman of color to represent Minnesota, one of the first 2 Muslim American women elected to Congress. So I want to play this clip. This is Ilhan Omar, and she thinks Trump won because of the level of stupidity that Americans are displaying every single day. Take a listen to this. She's slandering America. Here we go.
I really, I'm at the point where it's become really hard to have an intellectual debate with any of these people, because the level of stupidity that they are displaying every single day is frankly embarrassing, not just in Congress, but as Americans. And the fact that these people are allowed to say just the most ridiculous things tells you that the dumbing of the United States has arrived, because how else do we get a Trump presidency again? These people are just idiots. I really...
Okay, so in her statements there, she slanders half of the country solely because she disagrees with them politically and disagrees with who they voted for. So she's bashing people, half of the country, over half of the country, and she's bashing these people in the nation, of a nation, who gave her everything. Okay, this nation has given her everything. You look at her life and how she fled from Somalia, and we welcomed her with open arms. She's elected to Congress, which is amazing. So it begs the question, why is she so mad at the people who gave her more than anyone in Somalia could ever have dreamed of? It, like she could never get what she got here in America. Than like, there's no way she would have gotten what she got here in America than she did in Somalia. Okay, she wouldn't have gotten this kind of stuff in Somalia. Okay, so I don't know why she's got such a disdain in her heart for America. These are the people who allowed her, the Americans, the Minnesotans who elected her, to climb the political ladder. Okay, and this is a level of entitlement that is just so absurd to me. I don't understand how you could have this kind of entitlement. Even more astonishing is that it's impossible to name one positive thing that she's done for Minnesota or America. Okay, so on top of, affording her all of these opportunities in America, which she wouldn't have gotten in Somalia, she doesn't return she doesn't return anything, give us anything in return for putting her in this position. She hasn't done anything for the people of Minnesota. She hasn't done anything for the people of America. And she despises everyone and everything that got her to where she is today. Okay, and she's insulting you. She's insulting over half of America with these attacks. And she said, quote, they're allowed to say just the most ridiculous things. So that quote there, it's almost like she is calling for the censorship of Americans who are right of center. Okay, she wishes to take that right away from you if you're right of center, and she's allowed to spout her political nonsense all of the time. Okay, but you're not allowed to talk and say things, and I mean that's tyrannical overreach there. And if you're about tyrannical overreach, why don't you go back to Somalia? Okay, they love tyrannical overreach over there. I'll tell you right now, you won't be elected to Congress. Okay, I'll tell you right now, you're not going to be afforded any kind of opportunities there in Somalia. So I really don't understand this sense of entitlement coming from Ilhan Omar. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I have nothing nice to say about her. Yeah. I mean, I don't understand it. Well, number one, she tried, Ilhan Omar, according to records and documentation, apparently married her brother. Now, this was probably part of a scam. At least this is rumored, that it's probably part of a scam to get him into the country, to get him immigration papers. And to game the system like this. This is like, you were here, we opened our arms to you. I'm pretty sure she fled as a refugee to come here to America at 8 years old. And, that's how you repay America, by, marrying your brother with these records. I mean, she denies all of this, of course, but I mean, there's records here. So, yeah. to get your brother here and to get him immigration papers, and you're gonna, you know, skirt the system, skirt our immigration system that clearly worked for you. Okay, you're a refugee from Somalia. We allowed you into the country, open arms, and now you're elected to Congress, which is a huge opportunity. And you wouldn't have gotten that in Somalia, I'll tell you that much. And then you go out there and you call over half of Americans idiots and stupid because they disagree with you politically. It's just disgusting. There's so much I want to tell you. I am going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit more about Christopher Simmons. I want to end the show talking a little bit more about that locally here because it's just big news. You guys can always find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Subscribe to the channel. That really helps me out, guys. We'll be right back in just a couple of minutes. Wow. Hey, good morning. I so do appreciate you guys tuning in every single morning. Go ahead, smash that like button, share this out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can subscribe to the channel if you are a business owner and you'd like to reach a ton of people on not only digital platforms like YouTube, Rumble, but you also want to reach people over the airwaves. Give me a text, 309-451-9299. You can also email me, cat as the animal, C-A-T, at gpmbloomington.com. We'd love to hook you up with some advertising and get you in the ears of your potential customers and clients. Okay. All right. I want to get to this. This is really important stuff here, folks. And I want to hit it one more time. I hit it earlier in the show. Christopher Simmons. This is the guy that was determined to be the shooter in the weekend triple homicide and suicide. Okay. And it's important that you know that he had a criminal record. So this is DUIs. This is traffic violations. He also had a misdemeanor gun charge, which could have possibly been. I've never really seen this before. I guess it might extend to misdemeanor gun charges. I'd have to look into this a little bit more. It could have led to the revocation of your FOID card. Certain charges, domestic violence. If he didn't. I didn't see any domestic violence charges, but this was a misdemeanor gun charge. This could have led to the revocation of his FOID card, taking away his FOID card. His FOID card was revoked after he had purchased a gun legally in 2021, which was the gun he used at the scene of the crime and was obtained at the scene of the crime, according to the press release, the Bloomington Police Department's press release. Okay, so again, I want to point this out. FOID cards doesn't really matter. You have one, it gets revoked. It really doesn't matter. Criminals, they're going to purchase guns, even if he had purchased this legally, okay, back in 2021 before his FOID was revoked. But even if this wasn't, a legal gun that he obtained with his FOID card, he would have probably just gotten illegal, would have just bought one off the street or something like that, okay? Criminals, the FOID card, the little piece of plastic is meaningless to criminals, okay? So it was revoked, okay, and he still kept his gun, and that's not entirely his fault either because, well, it is entirely his fault, but the police should have done something. Okay, so the processes are set up after FOID revocation. Here's how it kind of goes. You're supposed to turn in a firearm disposition record. If the individual whose FOID card was revoked doesn't turn that in, that can trigger what's called failure to comply. And if that individual doesn't comply, so the record, the firearm disposition record, what that is supposed to do, it is supposed to inform the authorities how you either transferred your firearms or how you surrendered them to law enforcement. And you have to do that within 72-hour, there is a 72-hour surrender requirement. Okay, so if he didn't submit that form, that means that this individual failed to comply with the FOID revocation terms. Okay, they provide you instructions on how to surrender those firearms, and that means you failed to comply, which can trigger law enforcement, including ISP, the Illinois State Police, and they can do a search warrant and they can seize those firearms, confiscate those firearms. Okay, clearly, I don't think that happened because he still had the firearm. Okay, unless they missed it, I don't know. And they did conduct this. Well, I know the Illinois State Police, they did confirm that they did not conduct any kind of confiscation or seizure. Now, this is what the Illinois State Police said, quote, notification of Simmons' FOID revocation was sent and included in the law enforcement portal, which local law enforcement agencies can use for enforcement purposes. Okay, so that means, i.e. confiscation. So enforcement of the law where your FOID is revoked, you can't have those anymore. So yeah, I mean, end of the day, what I think happened here was bureaucratic gun control processes failed. It doesn't matter how much gun control laws you pass. At the end of the day, if the agencies aren't going to, follow through on the processes of gun control, what's really the point of even having them? I say, open up the mental institutions. People will yell at me, say, oh, Jimmy Carter's the one with the or Ronald Reagan was the one who closed down the mental institutions. I think it was Jimmy Carter. Look at the, it's called the Mental Health Systems Act. You guys can go look that up. That's where I think this all kind of began, was the Mental Health Systems Act. At the end of the day, I really don't care who closed up the mental institutions. Point is, we need to reopen them. And I feel like this guy was a prime candidate for mental institution. He had addiction issues, traffic violation, DUI, driving under the influence, cannabis, all of that. And yeah, you don't think cannabis, you can't get addicted to cannabis? Yeah, take a look at this guy's record, okay? DUIs, cannabis, and all of that. So it's just like, folks, I don't want to say it was preventable. At the end of the day, the guy was mentally ill. He was going to hurt people. But the guy was known to authorities, clearly. He had a FOID revocation, and his guns weren't confiscated, which the law says that law enforcement can confiscate those guns, and they didn't. So it really doesn't matter. The bureaucratic gun control process has failed. You guys have a blessed day. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. We're going to do it all over again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye. Be blessed. I'll talk to you again soon.